210 milligrams of test, 20 milligrams of Anavar, 2 IUs of growth, which is practically nothing.
What kind of cycle is this? Coach Greg, in today's video, we're going to be going over the Tren twins' brand new cycle. It's not clickbait. They go into details, exactly what they're taking, milligrams, everything. And so will they live up to their name? Are they taking Tren? Are they eating from my cookbook? Let's get right into it.
So we got that typical just bodybuilder meal, honestly, egg whites, oats.
And so meal one, typical bodybuilder meal, egg whites, of which it was actually whole eggs. I could clearly see the yellows, and oatmeal. And I do see some blue floating around in that oatmeal. And so perhaps they put in a little bit of blueberries. And so in meal one, 600 calories, 60 grams of protein, 13 grams of fat, of which it looked like there was a lot more fat than that, as I thought I saw more than 2 whole eggs, but you never know. Perhaps there was only 2 whole eggs, and so 13 grams of fat and 60 grams of carbs. And so I see nothing wrong with that.
I'm gonna let that digest because it's gonna take a while for all that fiber, you know, those eggs. Probably like a few hours. I'll be hungry in probably an hour, honestly.
And so he says, it's going to take a while. We got to let it digest. You know, all that fiber in those eggs, there's no fiber in eggs, everyone. And so just because a famous YouTuber says something doesn't mean it to be true. This would actually digest very quickly. Eggs, in particular, the egg white, is going to digest and absorb much more quickly than, for example, meats. If you eat chicken and or beef, it's going to stay in your system, take a lot longer to digest than if you're eating eggs. And things like bread and oatmeal, that digests also very quickly. In comparison, if they were eating vegetables or things that are high in fiber, remember, eggs are not high in fiber, those meals would take a long time to digest. And so for being first meal in the morning, the fact they're not dieting for competition, I see nothing wrong with eating in this way.
I'll be hungry in probably an hour, honestly. You got 5 meals today. Yeah, you're fat.
Cookbook.
I'm fat as
cookbook.
Fat as I'm shit. Fat as
cookbook. Now he says he's going to be hungry in about an hour. He's eating 5 meals a day. If you're in fact feeling overly hungry, you're trying to maintain, you're trying not to bulk, you're trying not to get fat, it would be smart to eat low calorie, high volume meals. And I think it goes without saying, you know where you could get these choices from. You could eat the meals from a cookbook. Imagine if the Tren twins just went back to the old diet and started eating meals from there. The meals are high in protein, very satiating. You're not going to be hungry in an hour. That is the point of these meals. And so, of course, if you're interested in that, go on our website, use that code, you go code Greg, you get 10% off, do whatever you want.
I'm probably eating more than I was in December because I would eat crumble cookie and then starve myself because I was just like, damn, I'm fat as
cookbook. And so back in December, he'd eat crumble cookie and then he'd have to starve himself back and forth. I mean, why would he ever listen to somebody like Coach Greg, you know, eating from my cookbook? I mean, why would anyone do that? It makes no sense. It's a stupid concept. Why would you get my cookbook?
Speaking of gear, we got a new cycle. You know, everybody wants to know about steroids. They think it's the end all.
And so here it is, what you were waiting for, the Tren twins' current cycle.
I'm taking like 200 milligrams of
cookbook
test a week.
First thing on the list, as is in most cycles, he lists testosterone. And at what dose? 200 milligrams per week. But is he in fact lying?
Which is
you're not taking
220. What was it? 210. Yeah, so I was 10 milligrams off.
Cookbook.
Me.
And so his brother's like, no, it's not. It's 220. They do the math. 70 milligrams times 3 times a week. It's 210. I mean, come on, 200, 210, 220, it's all roughly the same. And I can tell you, for being a cycle, that is a very low dose. Now, of course, it's higher than almost anyone would need for HRT. I'm at 140 milligrams a week, and so he's at 210. And so with testosterone alone, he's already at 50% more than Coach Greg. But remember, I'm only on HRT. If I were to bump up my dose to 210 milligrams, I'd be adding 50% more. That is a big difference. It doesn't seem like much. It's only 70 more milligrams. But when you go from 70 to 140, 140 to 210, these differences are huge.
210 milligrams of test, 20 milligrams of Anavar.
And next up, it's an oral. And which one? Well, it's one of the least hepatotoxic of all orals you can get. And it's one of, if not my favorite steroid that I've ever used in the past. And remember, never break the law and only use performance-enhancing drugs with the advice and the consent of your own doctor. Do not want anyone to copy or try these things unless, of course, the doctor recommends it and it's legal in your country. And so what he's taking daily is 20 milligrams milligrams of Anavar, and I can tell you right now, that is a low dose. Perhaps it's not all that low for a female, perhaps 20 milligrams a day, very common dose for women who compete in bikini, figure, and so on. But for a man, 20 milligrams, it's very low. I can tell you that when I was taking Anavar, I more typically would take 40 to 60 milligrams a day, and that's in addition to everything else I was taking. And so what I'm hearing so far is a very low dose of testosterone, one of which I would highly doubt you would get gynecomastia from. You likely would not need to take an aromatase inhibitor. You wouldn't need, for example, Nolva or Arimidex. Oftentimes when people are taking testosterone, a lot of the testosterone, it's converting to estrogen. Too much estrogen conversion can result in gynecomastia, you know, where the nipples get that puffy look. You don't want that. Also, you get a moon face. You're getting water retention. You look bloated. You're not as lean aesthetic. And so perhaps the Tren twins want to look lean year round. They want to have abs. They don't want to have a moon face. And so by using a low dose of testosterone, the benefit is they'll have a much more athletic appearance. Now you're thinking, why don't they just skip testosterone altogether? If testosterone converts to estrogen, then why don't they just cancel it out? Well, when you take steroids or androgens exogenously from a source outside the body, your body's own production of testosterone, it's going to go down. Your testicles, they're going to get smaller. Rather than being the size of an egg, perhaps it's the size of a grape. It's going to get much smaller than last time. LH, luteinizing hormone, FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, these are going to go on the decline. And so if you get blood work, you're going to notice FSH and LH, it's in the tank. And remember, you do need estrogen in order to perform optimally. Many people think estrogen is the enemy. If you have lower levels of estrogen, your sex drive, the way you feel, you're not going to feel as good as if your estrogen is at an appropriate level for you. Case in point, when bodybuilders do competitions, they're trying to look so dry. They're trying to have paper thin skin so that you can see every striation under the muscle. To get that look, we deliberately reduce our estrogen. Oftentimes, we cut out testosterone perhaps 3 weeks before the competition, or we take something like Femra to cancel out up to 98% of the estrogen being produced. The result, you're shredded, you're dry, you're also likely to get injured. You also perhaps have no sex drive, you can't get it up, you can't even get excited next to the hottest woman in the world. That is the price that many bodybuilders pay in order to get that crispy, dry, shredded look that is so heavily desired in bodybuilding competitions.
210 milligrams of test, 20 milligrams of Anavar, 2 IUs of growth. You can see how that affects us, which is practically nothing.
And added to this list is 2 IUs of growth hormone, which is practically nothing, he says. What kind of cycle is this? Growth hormone is one of the most expensive and overrated products you could ever take. And for a guy in his early 20s to take growth hormone instead of so many other things he could be taking, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Growth hormone should be the icing on the cake, the last thing you add into a cycle to perhaps get that pro card or win at the Olympia. It's not something you just throw into a cycle when you're into your 20s just because you think you're going to build more muscle than last time. And so in my opinion, this cycle is ridiculous. I cannot understand why the anabolic profile is so small, only 210 milligrams of testosterone a week and 20 milligrams of Anavar a day, and then you add in growth hormone, it doesn't make sense.
2 IUs of growth, you can see how that affects us, which is practically nothing.
And he states, we're adding in 2 IUs of growth just to see how that affects us. I mean, what's next? You can add in insulin? Oh, we're just going to throw in 10 IUs of Humalog, just see what it does. You don't need growth hormone. It's one of, if not the most overrated performance-enhancing drugs that you can get. You might not even notice 2 IUs. Is it even working? Is it real? Well, of course you can get blood work. What are your IGF-1 levels? But my opinion on growth hormone is this. Using growth hormone is borrowing against your future. Perhaps it's keeping you younger. Perhaps it's burning a few extra calories. Your hair and nails is growing faster. Perhaps your skin looks better. But you really want to shorten your life. Perhaps instead of living to be 90, you only live to be 70. All for the use of growth hormone. I am personally not on growth hormone, and I'm 48. These guys are in their early 20s. I'm over twice as old as them, and I'm not taking growth hormone, but yet they are. If it was really that beneficial, and if it was really all that safe, wouldn't I be on it? And so the fact that I'm not taking it, do you really think that the Tren twins should?
Which is practically nothing.
Oh, and we forgot to mention this, and 100 milligrams of Tren per week. And so here's the thing, Tren, it's very effective. It has an anabolic androgenic ratio of 500 in comparison to testosterone, which is 100. That does not mean it's 5 times as strong as testosterone. But from my experience and with my research, I believe it's about 3 times as strong as testosterone. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if you take 100 milligrams of Tren, it's probably going to put on the same amount of muscle as taking 300 milligrams of of test. But Tren is very harsh. It can cause insomnia, trensomnia, night sweats, makes you feel uneasy. It can cause anxiety. You just don't feel comfortable within your own skin. And so why are you taking something so strong? And yes, I'll give it, it's 100 milligrams is not a very high dose, but why would you take Tren when there are so many other safer and healthier choices? For example, why not take Masterone and or Primobolan instead of taking Tren? Yeah, I get it. Tren is probably 5 times as strong as Masterone and or Primo, but would it not make more sense for him to be taking, for example, testosterone and Masterone, or testosterone and Primo, or testosterone, Masterone and Primo, rather than taking Test and Tren? By taking Masterone and or Primo, it's not going to be as suppressive on the body. It's not going to cause trensomnia. He's not going to get the night sweats, and he would be able to save Tren for when he really needs it. Perhaps when he's getting older, perhaps when he goes for his pro card. Why are we using Tren in the off season in conjunction with a dose of only 210 milligrams of Test and 20 milligrams of Anavar? Tren should be considered something you add into the end of a cycle. Let's say you're doing a 16-week cycle. Tren should only be added, for example, in the final 8 weeks of the cycle. You don't begin your cycle with Tren. You add it when you're not getting any results from what you're already taking. It's something you add in because you have to, because you can't make gains in any other fashion. If he had said we're on 500 milligrams of Test, 500 milligrams of Masterone, and 50 milligrams of Anavar, I've been doing this for 8 weeks and my gains stopped, now I'm going to add in 100 milligrams of Tren, I'd say, okay, I understand that. You needed to add something stronger so that you could push your body into brand new growth. But to do this at the start of the cycle when your cycle is very weak, it makes no sense. It would be like Coach Greg, me right now, saying, hey, I'm adding in 100 milligrams of Tren a week to my cycle. Why would I do that? I'm on HRT. There's a dozen things I would add in before I would ever touch Tren, and I'm not going to touch Tren.
The reason you want to stay away from just taking gear as a beginner lifter, you're putting on natural gains that you could have put on a natty. You want to like extend how much gains you can get as a natural, because you don't want to put on muscle taking steroids that you could have put on naturally. Like, stay natural. Stay natural.
Had you ever thought of listening to your own advice? You're literally in your early 20s, not even near your genetic potential, and you're telling people, wait until you're at your limit, wait to use steroids until you're older, but you're not doing it yourself. Why are we giving advice, telling people exactly what to do, and not taking our own advice? It would be like me saying, hey, you should all do 150 minutes of cardio a week, and I'm not even doing it myself. Or, hey, everyone, it's important to get 8 hours sleep and to eat 30 grams of fiber a day to stay hydrated, and yet I'd not be sleeping properly and not taking in fiber and eating an unhealthy diet. Why not take your own advice? And so next up, meal 2, chicken and rice, little bit of vegetables, not much. 550 calories, 77 grams of carbs, 4 grams of fat, 50 grams of protein. It's a great meal. And so they're going to eat this 30 or 40 minutes before they work out. This is probably about the time when you should be taking your pre-workout. And if you're interested in pre-workouts, we have 2 brand new Hardcore 2.0. Of course, you can get these. Also have non-stim pre-workouts. That means there's no caffeine, no stimulants. And so what I do is actually do in the real world, like no bullshit, like what I actually do, I'll measure out 10 grams of this. It's about 1 1/4 scoops. And so I don't take all that much. 1 to 2 scoops, it says to take. 2 scoops to me would be just too much. I take this about 40 minutes before I work out or do a bike race. And then during the bike race, I take 3 scoops of pre-pump. No stims in pre-pump, but what I like is the beta-alanine, the L-citrulline, and so on. It gives me a huge pump. I feel great both during and after the race. And when I go to the gym, I'm lifting. I can't believe the vascularity, the pumps that I get. And even if I do an hour bike ride before I do an entire body workout, which I do very often, I have a great pump throughout the entirety of my workout. I have plenty of energy. I can train and do an hour cardio, an hour and a half weights right after, 2.5 hours of training harder than last time in the gym. And so that's from taking hardcore pre-workout and following that up with pre-pump while I'm at the gym. And so if you're interested in using the exact same supplements as I take, click the link in the description and use code Greg for 10% off.
We get a few options. You get rice cakes and protein powder, rice to grounds and protein powder, or you get chicken and rice, okay?
There are so many choices that would be just as good and or better. And so please don't think that you have to eat a specific meal, that it has to be this meal or that meal. There are 100 meals you could choose for meal 3. 100 meals you could choose for meal 1. What really does matter is that you're eating a healthy diet, that you're getting in enough protein, fats, and carbs. You're not skipping out on healthy fats, and you're getting in all your macro and micronutrients. And you can see he's got low-calorie syrup. They've also got lots of lettuce. They've got low-calorie vegetables. That allows them to be full.
230 grams of salmon, 175 grams of sweet potato, a veggie. This is probably My favorite meal.
And next up, meal 4, 230 grams of salmon and some vegetables. Great meal, great choice. And remember, eating fatty fish full of omega-3 fatty acids, this is very healthy, a great choice for your diet.
I'm still hungry. Meal 4, I'm still hungry.
And notice how he's saying, I'm still hungry. Meal 4, I'm still hungry. If they're always hungry, they're not going to be able to stick to this diet forever. You need to be satisfied. You need to be satiated. The cookbook, guys, you know you want to eat the recipes from the cookbook. And so meal 4, 440 calories, 64 grams of protein, only 30 grams of carbs, 8 grams of fat. As you can see, these are very low calorie meals. They're not on some crazy massive bulk. And if you add up the total calories of the day, only 2,700 calories. These guys are massive bodybuilders, well over 200 pounds of muscle, super strong, yet only eating 2,700 calories. How many of you guys out there think you need to eat 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day like Sam Sulik in order to build muscle? Total 277 grams of protein. Of course, they're going to eat more protein than you need. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to cause any problems. And by eating more protein, it's actually more satiating, and you burn more calories trying to digest protein than you do from digesting fat and or carbs. And so if you consume a lot of protein, for many people, it's easier to stick to your diet. When you're eating a lot of carbs, carbs can be trigger foods. If you start eating cookies, chips, ice cream, sometimes it's hard to stop eating them. And so my advice, keep the junk food, the foods that are trigger foods for you, out of the house, or at least out of sight. Hopefully you learned something from this video. Remember, do not abuse steroids. Always listen to your doctor. Never break the law. And if you're interested in any of the Harder Than Last Time supplements, coaching plans by me and my team, phone consults, the clothing line, anything, head over to my website. And if you have no money, it's okay. We're giving away a free diet and training program. It's close to 50 pages. Also, we have over 300,000 newsletter subscribers. Head over to my website, become a newsletter subscriber. Subscribe, click the bell button, like this video if you liked it. Please click the bell button so you get notified to get more videos like this. Watch one of those tube loops. And until next time, I am out.